Okay guys, this is a super important video and I don't want to waste your time, so I want to jump into it. I just watched the Joe Rogan Experience. I think it was $12.95 with Tulsi Gabbard. It was uploaded on May 13th and only has just shy of 2.1 million views. It's got 28,000 comments. And the reason I want to address it is because there is absolutely no Democratic presidential contender on the Democrat side or in past Republican elections or debates that are even on the same planet as Tulsi Gabbard. And I'm gonna put a caveat there, so just hang on for a second. The only one that could even come close to her in past elections and past debates is Ron Paul. And from what I've heard, I've seen a couple people say that Ron Paul has endorsed Tulsi Gabbard. I haven't verified that, so I don't know if it's true, but the reason I'm saying nobody comes even close is because nobody's talking about regime change wars. Nobody is talking about the military-industrial complex. Now, does this mean I endorse Tulsi Gabbard? No, just hang on, just hang on for a second. There's a reason people don't talk about the military-industrial complex. There's a reason people don't talk about the issues that really need to be talked about, especially with the regime change wars that we're seeing in Syria, what we've seen in Libya, what we're currently seeing in Venezuela. They don't talk about regime change wars because that is the name of the game, empire building, okay? So, but there are a lot of things that were left out of the Joe Rogan Experience thing. And there were a couple of things where it looked like Rogan was about to ask her some really pointed questions, especially one point where he said, I'm going to put my tinfoil conspiracy hat on here. And he didn't follow through with whatever question he was going to ask. Maybe he asked it later and it was a little bit more covert and I missed it. But this video is 2 hours and 34 minutes long. I was going to say, don't bother watching it because I've already watched it for you, but I would watch it. Take a look at what she says, but more importantly, even though she talked about the military-industrial complex, even though she strongly condemns regime change wars, which no candidate does, guys, no candidate. Maybe Andrew Yang, I haven't heard him say it. Bernie Sanders has kind of touched on it, but Tulsi Gabbard is the one who outshines everybody. Like, I'm talking about not even in the same universe. And still I won't endorse her, and there's a reason for that. Time and time again on this channel, I've played the clip with Alan Greenspan when he was questioned about what the relationship is between U.S. presidents and the Federal Reserve, especially the Federal Reserve chairman. And basically, Alan Greenspan, I'm just going to paraphrase him here, and I'm probably not even going to put the video insert, but I'll probably leave a link to it. Basically, what he said was, as far as the relationship between the Federal Reserve, we are a private corporation. They have no say in what we do in regard to monetary policy. In other words, even the President of the United States, who is quote unquote the leader of the free world, has no say in what we, the bankers, do with your money, which is really not our money. It's a Federal Reserve note and it's a note of debt. There's no value in it. What Tulsi Gabbard and Joe Rogan did not, and what nobody will ever talk about, is Israel. They won't talk about the Federal Reserve. They won't talk about the international banking cartel. You can talk all you want to about the military-industrial complex. You can talk all you want to about how you hate regime change and how you think it should be different, how we should keep our minds and our soldiers and our business out of Syria, out of Libya, out of Iraq, out of Afghanistan. You can talk all you want to about that, but until you address the real problem of how do we actually fund this, because guys, we cannot fund Afghanistan, we cannot fund Iraq, we cannot do what we're doing in Venezuela unless we have a Federal Reserve banking cartel that monetizes all that. You can't do it without the easy credit of the Federal Reserve note. Now, she talked about how we dealt with Saddam, and she talked about how we dealt with Gaddafi, but she didn't talk about why we dealt with her. She touched on it was about oil, and yeah, in a sense, in part, it's about oil. But it was about the petrodollar arrangement that we have. See, what a lot of people don't understand, and I'm pretty convinced that most people don't even know in America, is that Saddam moved away for a couple months from using the dollar as the world's reserve currency, and he went to the euro. He started buying oil with euro. He wasn't using American dollars. That concerned the oligarchs, the Federal Reserve, because we can't have that. When people start going off of the Federal Reserve note and onto some other currency, that jeopardizes the fiat currency Ponzi scheme petrodollar arrangement. And when that happens, you threaten the stability of the entire economy. So we can't have that. Got to move in, got to take care of Saddam. Same thing in Libya with Gaddafi. He was moving toward a gold-based currency called the dinar. Well, we can't have that. They said, a lot of people were under the impression it was just about oil. Guys, it's not just about oil. The most important thing to establish and secure and defend with military might and power in those regions is the American dollar, the Federal Reserve note. Because every nation who needs energy to run their economies has to buy that energy in the form of oil with Federal Reserve notes. That's the arrangement. That's why Nixon closed the gold window on August 15th, 1971. That's why we reneged on the Bretton Woods Accord, which established the FRN at $35 an ounce. That's why Charles de Gaulle of France said, hey, what's going on here with the Vietnam War? How can they possibly be spending that much money? We want our gold back. And they sent ships across the Atlantic full of Federal Reserve notes so that France could get their gold back. This is all about securing the petrodollar arrangement. Tulsi Gabbard is not going to talk about that. Now, what I would like to see, but I've said this in the past before, is I'd like to see this person become president so that people can actually see that when they get in there as president, things change. Tulsi Gabbard is all against regime change wars. Tulsi Gabbard says she's all against the military-industrial complex. As a matter of fact, in one snippet of that JRE clip, and I can't even play his clips because if I do, they take my video down. But in one part of that, they played Eisenhower talking about the dangers of the military-industrial complex. Tulsi Gabbard was fully aware of that. So it's not enough to talk about regime change wars and getting rid of them. It's not enough to talk about and just make this blanket statement about the military-industrial complex. You got to do something about the root cause. It's kind of like I said the other day. You go into a doctor's office and all of the surgeons gather around the table and they look at this mole that you have, this very tiny mole on your left shin. Meanwhile, on the other side of the table, your jugular is slit open and blood is squirting across the room and nobody's addressing that issue. This blood squirting across the room, that's the Federal Reserve. Nobody's talking about it. Now, one of the things she did bring up that I wasn't aware of, I knew we were spending a lot of money in Afghanistan. I didn't know it was this much. Apparently, and if you look on it, this is public information. I don't know why my nose is itching. I'm around all these plants here. I'm somewhere in Oklahoma. I think it's no, I'm in Okmulgee, Oklahoma, near this storage facility here. Trish is doing some thrift shopping. Anyway, we apparently spend 100 to 120 billion dollars every year on just Afghanistan. Guys, if you break that down, that's $273 million a day. You divide that by 1,440 minutes in a day, that's $190,000 every minute. And if you want to break it down by seconds, because there's 86,400 seconds in a day, that comes out to $3,100 a second. We're spending $273 million every day on Afghanistan alone. And then you add to that $52 million every single day for NASA, $10.2 million a day for Israel. And those are just three lists, guys. Three items on the list. How is that possible? How in God's earth is that possible? It's only possible through a dishonest money system called the Federal Reserve, the petrodollar arrangement. We can only waste that much money on credit, and we can only create that credit out of thin air through the Federal Reserve. Unless you deal with the Federal Reserve, you're not dealing with anything. You're those doctors, you're those surgeons around the table looking at this mole, this insignificant, almost microscopic mole on the left kneecap of America, while their jugular is squirting across the room. So, in one sense, I want Tulsi Gabbard to be president, because I want everybody to see that no matter who sits behind that desk at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, nothing is going to change, nothing significant, until you root out the the main problem, the Federal Reserve, the international banking cartel, you can't possibly start to deal with the problem. Matter of fact, you're not even touching the problem. You're the surgeons around that table looking at a microscopic mole or some little insignificant white hair growing out of the kneecap or big toe of America, while the jugular is slit wide open, and they're just raping America through the income tax, raping America through these crazy taxes, even taxes you don't even see, like the inflation tax. Nobody considers that when there's inflation, well, you just got taxed. For every bad part of the trade, somebody benefits. And the bad part of the trade in taxation and the income tax and inflation and hyperinflation is that somebody on the other side of the table, the bankers, are benefiting from it to your detriment, to your destruction. And that's what's going to destroy America, because we have an unsound, dishonest money system. So they didn't talk about Israel. They didn't talk about the Federal Reserve. They didn't mention the national debt, not one bit. Not one mention of the national debt. They didn't talk about the IRS. They didn't talk about the petrodollar. They didn't talk about Tulsi Gabbard as part of the Council on Foreign Relations, which the companion to that is the Trilateral Commission, and the companion to that is the Bilderberg Group. These completely evil people, parts of these entities that want to take America down. They're not talking about any of that. And they did not talk about Tulsi Gabbard's desire to institute gun control / people control. She talks all this big talk about how she's for the United States and she's for America and she wants to get us out of these regime change wars, but back at home, she wants to take your assault weapons. She wants to lay on you further gun restrictions, which is people restrictions. So she wants the ring of power, just like they all want the ring of power, but she is, I mean, you cannot deny the fact that she's a reasonable, knowledgeable voice who knows what she's talking about in regard to regime change, but she's not going to touch the Federal Reserve. And here's an interesting thing. Let me just close with this. Joe Rogan talked about Bill Hicks doing this little skit where there's a smoke-filled room and they bring the incoming president in and show him a film of the JFK assassination from their perspective, showing, hey, we killed JFK, this is going to happen to you and your family if you don't get in line with what we say. It was interesting that he brought that up, because in essence, that is exactly what the Federal Reserve is. He talked about the Federal Reserve actually covertly without talking about the Federal Reserve, but nobody's going to bring up the Federal Reserve because, hey, it's ludicrous. Let's move on to something else. Don't talk about the Federal Reserve. You're just a conspiracy theorist. Guys, if we don't deal with the Federal Reserve, you are dealing with absolutely nothing. Please share this video, because this is vital information that I am convinced most Americans, probably most people in the world, don't even know but need to know. You want to rise up against one thing? We need to rise up against the Federal Reserve and against the Internal Revenue Service, the domestic terror cell, actually international terror cell, that is just bleeding Americans for money so that they can do whatever they want to with their petrodollar currency arrangement. I'll see you guys. Just share this video with everybody you know. I'll see you guys in the next heavily censored shadow banned video. And remember, make it a great day for yourselves and for everybody else in your zone of influence. I'll see you guys in the next heavily censored, woefully shadow banned video.